Students, so we will do subjective questions from the chapter The Rat Trap. First, if the world is nothing but a big rat trap, as the tramp stated in the story The Rat Trap, who might the rat trap peddler be? Discuss. In the world that is nothing but a big rat trap, the rat trap peddler went from being someone who makes rat trap himself to someone caught in one. The peddler spent most of his life making rat traps and selling them for a few pennies. He even resorted to begging and thievery because the world and its means of survival has been too cruel on him. Yet, even when the crofter showed him kindness, he could not help but give into his temptation of having more and ended up stealing his money. The peddler knew that riches and joys, the desire for shelter and food, were nothing more than the bait set in the rat trap. He, though with guilt, gives into his temptations and finds himself caught in the vicious rat trap that the world is. Second, despite his philosophical insights, the vagabond fails to resist temptations. What would you attribute this to? Explain with reference to any instance from the text. The metaphor of the rat trap highlights the theory of crime and punishment. Crimes such as theft or giving in to temptation are compared with the bait and subsequent imprisonment in a trap. Moreover, in spite of knowing the fact, people fail to resist temptations owing to their smartness to befool others. However, the human predicament forms the basis of the story, where the story of Rat Trap serves to bring out a lesson in moral values. That's why Adler's kindness again reformed Peddler's ways. Do you think the story Question third is, do you think the story reinforces a stereotype that women are more trusting, forgiving, and less practical than men? Comment with reference to Adler's action in the story. So the peddler met the iron master's daughter for the first time at the forge. She had come to request him to come over their house, as her father had mistaken him to be an old acquaintance, a captain. She was able to convince him and took him home. At home, when her father realized that they had made a mistake and he was not the captain, the daughter was very polite and kept him at home. As it was Christmas, the rat trap seller was greatly influenced by Ironmaster's daughter. In fact, it was because of her that he had turned over a new leaf and returned the money that he had stolen from old men. It was the kind nature of the girl that changed him. Question 4. What might be significance of setting the story events during Christmas? Now, let's see the answer. Christmas is the time of celebration and forgiveness. Also, Christmas is the time to amend one's ways. The story is set up in the background of Christmas as the Iron Master and his daughter showed charity to the peddler. The predominant theme of the story is that of redemption through gift of charity and peace. The Rattrap seller is mistaken for an old friend of Iron Master and taken home for Christmas festivities. There, even though his true identity of vagabond and petty thief is disclosed, he is given peaceful rest, plenteous good food, and the gift of suit of clothes. In response to being treated as an elevated person, he delves inward and acts like an elevated person. We aren't told that what he continues to do, but we are told that he now thanks the Iron Master's daughter for her courteousness and generosity, and gives her the money to return to Crofter, a tenant farmer, from whom he stole it after receiving the Crofter's hospitality of supper, conversation, a bed, and breakfast. This theme and these redemptive acts surely make this an as Christmas story. Next question. Explain the metaphor of rat trap. in the context of story of Selma Lagerlof. So we have to remember this value point, that is use of metaphor of rat trap to highlight story of character getting trapped in his avarice. Let's see the detailed answer. So in the story, the peddler used rat traps sold by him as a metaphor for the world. According to him, the world was a big rat trap because it was full of temptations. Like a rat trap, it offered riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing. When someone was tempted to touch them, it would close on him and everything came to an end. Next question. How did Crofter entertain the peddler? The crofter treated him kindly. He offered him shelter in his cottage, gave him porridge for supper. Then he cut a big slice from the tobacco roll, which was sufficient for both of them, and offered it to him. The crofter played Majolis, that's a card game, with him and shared his secret with him. Next question. What was the content of letter written by Peddler to Adler? We have to remember these value points. The peddler had written that since Adler had treated him like a captain, he wanted to be nice to her in return, did not want her to be embarrassed at a Christmas by a thief, had requested her to return back the crofter's money that he had stolen. The rat trap was a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in the world's rat trap if he had not been raised to the status of captain, which motivated him to reform himself. You can see the detailed answer here. So we'll move to next question. Why was the crofter so talkative and friendly with the peddler? Or why was the crofter so kind and generous to the peddler? Let us see the value points, that he lived alone, all alone, wanted always to talk to someone, a generous host, offered porridge and tobacco, played majolis. So let us see the detailed answer. The crofter was talkative and friendly with Peddler. He was more than happy than when he saw him standing at his door, because he led a lonely life. He had no family and he lived there alone. He felt elated to have some company and someone to share his things and to confide in. Being a generous host, he offered porridge and tobacco to his guest and played majolis with him. Question 9. Why was Peddler amused at the idea of the world being a rat trap? Value points, let us see it. Others got entrapped, whereas he was not lured by temptation, or we can say free from the rat trap. Gave him joy to think ill of world in this way. So let us see the detailed answer. The peddler was amused at the idea of world being a rat trap, as the world has never accepted him. Everyone had always been unkind to him. He was amused with the idea because he himself had never led a good life and envied others who led a better life than him. He thought that others got entrapped, whereas he was not lured by temptations and was free from them. It gave him joy to think ill of the world in this way. Next question. What hospitality did the peddler receive from Crofter? Or at the Crofter's home, why did the peddler feel very happy? Or how was the peddler treated at the Crofter's cottage? Let's see the value points. Received warm welcome or place to stay, porridge for supper, big slice of tobacco roll, played majolis or we can say cards. Crofter confided in him. So let us see the detailed answer. The crofter treated him kindly. He offered him shelter in his cottage, gave him porridge for supper. Then he cut a big slice from tobacco roll which was sufficient for both of them and offered it to him. The crofter played majolis, a card game, with him. He also confided in him and shared his secret with him. Let's see the question 11. What do we learn from Crofter's nature from the story The Rattrap? So let us see the value points. Like he was generous, loved to talk, hardworking, trusting, gullible, compassionate, lonely. So let us see the detailed answer. The crofter was generous and happy when the peddler knocked at the door because he used to stay there alone. He was happy to have someone, like have some company and someone to share his things and achievements with. He was happy to share his confidence of getting 30 kroners by selling the milk of his cow. Let's see the 12th question. Why did Crofter show the 30 kroners to Peddler? Let's see the value points. The Crofter felt proud of cow that gave him enough milk to support him. To convince the Peddler was lonely or happy to share his confidence generously with the Peddler, trusting. So let us see the detailed answer. The crofter had a cow which he was proud of because it gave him enough milk to support him. Since he never had any guests and lived alone in his house, he was happy to share his confidence of getting 30 kroners by selling the milk of his cow. However, when he saw the peddler was not convinced, he got up and took out the three 10 kroner bills and showed them to the peddler. Next question 13. Why did Iron Master speak kindly to Peddler and invite him home? Value points. Mistook Peddler for an old comrade. Iron Master was happy he found his comrade with whom he could spend the Christmas Eve. Loneliness of Iron Master made him desperate to invite the man home because of condition in which he had found the peddler. Let's see the detailed answer. The Iron Master spoke kindly to the peddler and invited him home because he thought that he was an old acquaintance of his. Due to the dim light and the peddler's unkempt appearance, he mistook him for Niels Olof, someone he had known a long time back. He thought he could spend Christmas Eve with him. Moreover, he felt that his comrade had not been keeping well after resigning, so he invited him to his home. Question 14. How did Adler persuade her father to let the peddler stay in their home till Christmas? Let's see the value points. Walks the whole year long, chased away, no home that makes him feel welcome, afraid of being arrested, wants him to enjoy at least one day of peace. Morally, they thought not to turn away a human whom they have invited for Christmas and promised Christmas cheer. Let's see a detailed answer. Adela pleaded with her father not to send the vagabond away because she wanted him to stay there for Christmas celebration. She understood how hard it must have been for him to wander from place to place and being homeless. She wanted him to stay and enjoy at least one day of peace, comfort, and solace. Moreover, it was Christmas Eve, and Adela wanted to keep the spirit of Christmas alive. She told her father that they had invited him as a guest for Christmas, so they must keep their promise and not turn him away. You can see the tips here. So let's see the 15th question. Why was Adela happy to see the gift left by Peddler? Let's see the value points. It showed the Adela's trust was not broken by Peddler. Her goodness had paid off and Peddler had transformed. She will not have to suffer criticism for trying to help a thief. So let us see the detailed answer. The peddler had left a gift for Adela. This showed Adela that her care and kind gesture had transformed the peddler. Her trust was not broken by the peddler, and her goodness had been paid off. This also saved Adela from her father's criticism of trying to help a thief. Rather, she would have a high image of transforming a thief into a compassionate person. So all the 2 marks questions are done. Now we'll see the long answer type questions of 5 marks each. First question. How would you compare the peddler's action in relation to Crofter and Adler? Would you say kindness does not always beget kindness and that the conditions for receiving kindness are important for it to truly transform people? Elaborate. Write relevant textual details to support the analysis. Answer. The story revolves around the theory that life is one big rat trap. This implies that if one takes something wrongfully, the person will end up getting trapped in life as a consequence. The peddler felt that the whole world was a big rat trap that sets baits for people. The peddler earned his living by petty thievery. The crofter had treated the peddler with hospitality and had even reposed his trust in the poor vagabond. Still, the peddler robbed him and was quite pleased with his smartness. However, the fear of getting caught haunted him, so he avoided the public highway and turned into the woods. His reaction reveals that he was feeling guilty for having stolen the crofter's money. His heart was filled with remorse and self loathing for his act of weakness. However, his thoughts are perhaps also a way of justifying his crime. Nevertheless, he turns over a new leaf when he receives compassion and trust from Ironmaster's daughter. The protagonist believed till then in the dismal side of human nature. Adler saw the peddler for the first time when she came to fetch him home. She noticed at once that the man was afraid. She guessed that he was either a thief or a runaway culprit. Despite this, she requested him to stay. She was spontaneous and friendly and coaxed the peddler into spending the Christmas with them. He also accepted the fur coat and wore it over his rags. Adler expressed her surprise about his miserable plight and noticed that there was nothing to show that he was an educated man. When in the church, she realized that he was a thief. She never once expressed her fear. Her trust and compassion helped in reforming the peddler. The peddler's first true Christmas at Ironmaster's house urged him to change his ways and honors people's trust in him. The story validates the concept that compassion revolves around humankind and the consideration of others. The peddler makes amends by returning the money he had previously stolen from the old man who had sheltered him. The tale also throws light on the value of second chances, stating that everyone should get another chance in life. Second question, it's important. How does the story Rattrap highlight the importance of community over isolation? So let us support the answer with textual evidence. Or the question can be, the Rattrap focus on human loneliness and the need to bond with others. Let us see the value points. The Rattrap seller undergo change in his personality as he experiences the shift from isolation to community. Rattrap seller is devoid of family and friends. He is depicted as a loner. Instances that depict his engagement with community, hospitality of old men, the Christmas episode, his experience of friendship leading to a change in his persona, and any other relevant points. So let us see, or the value points for the second question, like human loneliness and need to bond with others. Value points: each of the four characters feel lonely. Each in his or her own way makes an attempt at bonding. Crofter by offering a peddler hospitality. Ironmaster by thinking the peddler was the captain and inviting him. Adler, despite her knowledge about the peddler, insisted on his stay. Peddler, affected by Adler's sincerity, became a reformed person. One who used to think ill of society became one of its members. So let us see the full detailed answer. So first we'll say that man is the social animal. He cannot live alone. In every field of life, he needs the help of someone or the other. However, there are few people who do not live to socialize with others. They stay away from their fellow beings. They shrink the company of their friends and become recluses. They are overpowered by negative feelings. The themes of human loneliness and the need to have someone to share one's joys and sorrows with runs throughout the story. To begin with, the reader's attention is drawn to Peddler, who is lonely, and his loneliness he makes rat traps and is left to his own meditation. When he knocks at cottage, the crofter welcomes him and entertains him. It is because crofter is lonely. He wants someone to talk to. He finds in Peddler a good companion and tells him a lot about himself and his cow, even though the peddler is a complete stranger to him. Then we find the Iron Master and his daughter are also lonely. They live in a big house and have nobody else for company. Therefore, they insisted that Peddler should spend the Christmas Eve with them. You can see the tips here. So let us see the next question. Why did Crofter repose confidence in the peddler? How did the peddler feel after betraying the crofter? So let us see the answer. The peddler was ungrateful for the hospitality showed by the crofter. The crofter reposed confidence in the peddler because he was lonely and wanted someone with whom he could share his feeling. He welcomed the peddler in his house. When he had asked for the shelter, he took good care for him. He immediately put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him supper. Then he carved off a big slice from his tobacco roll and gave it to him. Finally, he brought out the old pack of cards and played majolis with him until bedtime. Not only this, the old man was just as generous with his confidence as with his porridge and tobacco. He told him at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter at Ramstow Ironworks and had worked on the land, and now he had 30 kroners which he had earned by selling the milk of his cow. Let's see the next question. What made the peddler finally change his ways? So let's see the value points. He was lonely, ill-treated by others, a thief, a beggar. Adler's compassion, trust and good treatment changed him into a better person. Returned the stolen money. Letter of thankfulness. Let us see the detailed answer. The world had never been kind to the peddler. It made the peddler a petty thief. However, the ironmaster's daughter proved to be an angel in his life. When her father came to know that Peddler was not one of his regimental acquaintances, he ordered him to leave his house immediately. Now his daughter came to his rescue. She said that it was none of Peddler's mistake. As a result, her father gave in. She treated the peddler as if he was a real captain. Her kindness and sympathy completely transformed the peddler. While leaving the ironmaster's house, he left a small packet having a small rat trap, 3 wrinkled 10 kroner notes, and a letter. In his letter, he wrote, "Since you have been nice to me all day long, I want to be nice to you in return. You can give the money to the old man on the roadside. The rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in the world's rat trap if he had not been raised to a captain." Let's see the fifth question. How did Crofter tempt the peddler to steal his money? How did it change the peddler's life? Value points. Showed the peddler 3 10 kroner notes and put them back in the pouch. A bait, peddler trapped. No more a free person, had to be cautious. Took to woods, reaches iron mill. Adler's invitation, trust returned to stolen 30 kroner reformed. So let us see detailed answer. The crofter was a lonely man. He was very happy, more than happy, when the peddler knocked at his door. He shared his confidence with him and told him that he had 30 kroners in a leather pouch. The peddler stole 30 kroners from the crofter's house, but he realized that he could dare not continue on the public highway and must turn off the road into the woods. During the first few hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely that he walked on, without coming to an end of the forest, and realized that he had been caught in a rat trap. He was no more a free person. He had to be cautious. On hearing the sound of hammer, he moved towards it and reached an iron mill. The master's daughter Adler took him home for Christmas Eve. She showed him kindness and humane feelings towards him, which changed him altogether. He turned the 30 kroner to Adler and became a reformed man as he had been risen to the status of a captain. Let us do the next question. Question 6. How did the seller of rat traps realize that he himself was caught up in a rat trap after he left the crofter's cottage? Or, very soon after stealing the crofter's money, how did Peddler realize that he was himself caught in a rat trap? So, let us remember these value points. After stealing, he avoided public highway, went in the woods, got confused, path seems to twist back and forth. The 30 corner was the bait, felt the forest closing upon him like a prison. So let us see the detailed answer. After the peddler stole 30 kroners from the crofter's house, he realized that he could not continue on the public highway but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first few hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later on the day, it became worse, for it was the big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He walked on without coming to an end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. All at once, he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed on him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. You can see the tips here. Next, seventh question. How did Adler bring about a change in the peddler? Pretty common questions. Let us go with this. Let us see first suggested value points. Kind to Peddler, treated him with respect, persuaded him to accompany her, fed him, got him bathed, shaved, so to his comforts, persuaded her father to let the tramp stay on, invited him for the next Christmas Eve, gifted her father's old clothes. So let us see the detailed answer. The peddler met the ironmaster's daughter for the first time at the forge. She had come to request him to come over their house as her father had mistaken him to be an old acquaintance, a captain. She was able to convince him and took him home. At home, when her father realized that they had made a mistake and he was not a captain, the daughter was very polite and kept him at home as it was Christmas. The Rattrap seller was greatly influenced by Ironmaster's daughter. In fact, it was because of her that he had turned over a new leaf and returned the money that he had stolen from an old man. It was the kind nature of girl that changed him. Let us do the eighth question. The peddler thinks that the whole world is the rat trap. This view of life is true only of himself and of no one else in the story. So comment. Value points. World is a rat trap. Offer baits. Peddler deprived of food, shelter and money, easily trapped. Others, Crofter, Adler and Iron Master not tempted. In his own opinion, only he suffers. So let us see the detailed answer. The view of life was true for Peddler because when he was offered food and shelter at the Crofter house, which is like a bait for a rat, he took it and stole the crofter's money. He then tries to run away from being caught, but got lost in the forest as it was big and confusing. Thus he considered the world as a big rat trap in which he had fallen, and the crofter's money was the bait. Now his own turn has come, as he had let himself be fooled by the bait and had been caught in the trap. He knew that Ironmaster had mistaken him for someone else, yet he went with him. The paddler was thus deprived of shelter and got easily trapped by the temptations. The other characters in the story, like the crofter, Iron Master, and his daughter, have human values of love, compassion, and understanding of love, and for them, the world is not a rat trap. They looked upon the world as a happy place to live and share the happiness with others. Thus, the paddler's view about the world as a rat trap is true for him only as he got caught into the traps for food, shelter, and money, whereas the others were not tempted. So, last question. The paddler believed that the whole world is the rat trap. How did he himself get caught in the same? So let us see the value points. Peddler gets tempted and trapped when he gets easy access to Crofter's money. Realize that he is in trap when loses his way in the forest with few corners in his pocket. Again gets caught in the trap with Adler's assurance of Christmas cheer. Repeatedly surrenders to worldly temptations. Realizes the world is a rat trap with all its worldly temptations like riches, joy, shelter, etc. So let us see the detailed answer. The rat trap paddler came up with theory that the whole world is rat trap and that all the luxuries are merely baits. It gave him great pleasure to think of the world this way. One night he took shelter in the house of an old and lonely crofter who was very generous. He gave the paddler a meal, talked to him, and even showed him the 30 kroners he had earned because of his cow. Tempted by the money, the paddler stole the money from the crofter and headed towards the forest. The dense forest was like a maze, and he soon got lost, realizing that the money was a bait and now he himself was trapped in a rat trap. The peddler soon found refuge at Iron Mill, where he was mistaken by the Iron Master for an old friend. Even though he refused to come to Iron Master's house for fear of being caught, he was ultimately persuaded by Adler, the Iron Master's daughter. Once again, he regretted being caught in a trap and wished he hadn't stolen the money. By not trying to clear his identity in hope of some more money, he was further trapped when his identity was uncovered the next day. He was still allowed to stay because of Adler's intervention. Her kindness and faith in him ultimately allowed him to free himself from the trap in which he had been caught. Unlike the other characters in the story, the paddler is only one who succumbed to loneliness and is far away from the human bonds of love and sympathy that made him a cynic and consider the world as a rat trap. Thank you.